It's all right. Yes, Swapan Dasgupta.
Thank you very much, sir, for giving me the opportunity and speaking on the President's address. Now, for the past few hours, we've been hearing a lot of political exchange. I don't want to get into the tutu-meme of that, and we've heard some very passionate speeches on that. I think what is far more important is to look at least from my perspective, and taking a little dispassionate view, is that in the President's address, we had a plethora of schemes being mentioned. If the economic survey is to be believed, today there are 950 central government schemes whose budget takes up 5% of the GDP. Now, many of these schemes were formed by earlier governments. Many of these schemes are the handiwork of this government. And let me say that all of them were probably well-intentioned. They had a specific purpose in mind. The question which we have to ask ourselves at this stage, and I'm using the President's address because the President attached a lot of importance to the schemes, is that to what extent have we, as a state, acquired the capacity to be able to put well-intentioned schemes into operation? And I think this is an issue which doesn't affect only one party, which doesn't affect the center alone. It affects the states as well. And it's a shame, really, that when people contrast how good a certain state has been doing in terms of women's empowerment, for example, which we just heard, it is always posited against the lapses of the center. Likewise, a similar case can be made. The economic survey pinpoints certain schemes which have been very well executed. There have been schemes in Chhattisgarh which have been wonderfully executed. There have been schemes in Tamil Nadu which have been wonderfully executed. And these are issues which I think we need to take a pride. But let us take a look at the schemes which have faltered. And if we were to add up the entire development budgets of India since 1947 to now, I think we would be correct in saying that the slogan of Ek Bharat, Shresth Bharat wouldn't have remained just a slogan. It would have been a reality. So the question is not merely of leakages. It's the inability of today the state to deliver. Now, we are having some bizarre situation. Can we blame it on the bureaucracy? My friend Vinay Sahasrabudhe was very right in saying that a lot of sterling work has been done in this government by the very same adhikaris who earlier may have been inefficient. And I think that's an important point. But there are only a few people who actually carry a state. The rest, unfortunately, there are many more laggards. And that's true for any organization, that's true for any bureaucracy. We've had a bizarre situation, sir, a very bizarre situation of revenue service officers actually protesting the loss of their powers by the GST. An enactment of legislation which has been passed unanimously by both houses of parliament is refused, and there is non-cooperation from people whose job it is to execute government policies. Now, I can understand people of there may be certain sections of the state, may I say the judiciary, which believes that they should be making the laws. Now, if that disease was to spread to even the bureaucracy, and Babudam taking advantage of constitutional guarantees, but to say, no, we actually make the laws, that would be a terrible thing. This is not to tar the entire bureaucracy with the same brush. There are people who have been helping, who have done sterling work during the demonetization crisis. They have helped ordinary people under difficulties. But there have also been people, and I think Ghulam Nabi Azad ji pointed it out, who allowed the back door to be open and which actually undermined the equitable suffering, which made it possible for some people to claim that some people are suffering more than others. So, sir, I think in this entire President's speech, all I want to really say, and I don't want to sort of go on this point, that if we are to make democracy much more rounded, one of the great achievements of this government, I feel, is that they've added a new quotient to the entire equation of governance. And for the first time, through the methods of direct transfer, through other imaginative use of technology, etc., they have added the word efficiency as a necessary obligation of governance. I think this is an important step. It's a very creditable step. If we are to get out of the syndrome of being a permanently deprived, poor, underdeveloped, helpless country, which we are not, if the achievements of India are to be on par with the achievements of Indians, then I think it's very, very important that the entire machinery of delivery has to be looked at far more rigorously. I was therefore a little taken aback when the entire mention of administrative reforms, administrative toning up, was not a part of this. It's not necessarily a lapse, but it's something which seems to be done by stealth. I wish motivation alone could be the only way out of this. But sir, sometimes we have seen also examples, and I'm glad of that. There have been certain actions taken against inefficient officers. I've told some IAS people have been sacked, and an IPS officer has been sacked. I'm sure, they were really the rotten apples in the pack. Likewise, there have been others who have done exemplary service. So, the question really arises that if this government has to really be responsive, and the word responsiveness is very much a part of this. We've heard various examples of how this government, this is not to suggest other governments weren't responsive. I think it's very important that this basic feature has to be taken into account. I think demonetization, which we've discussed at great length, was a very grave, audacious step forward. It was a step forward because it did what no one else was willing to do. It took the plunge. I think it calls for a certain strength of leadership to be able to do something when you realize what the formidable challenges are. Otherwise you say, oh my God, these challenges are too insurmountable. We can't go ahead. And therefore that is a very, very positive thing. But to carry that gain forward, it's not enough to just go by that and say, oh, enough remonetization of the economy. What is happening today, sir, if we are to make India ethical, if we are to take Swachh Bharat out of mere the physical thing and make it a part of our spirit, I think a lot of uncomfortable decisions will have to be taken, which sometimes may involve suffering. So therefore, I think it's very important that we can criticize the government for its shortcoming, and I think it's only legitimate that everyone should. Whenever a government has done something wrong or there have been lapses, it is. But to have a permanently negative attitude, I'm reminded, and my friend Jairam Ramesh is here, who has a greater experience of the United States. what a discredited American Vice President Spiro Agnew once called the nattering nabobs of negativism. And I'm sometimes reminded of that when I hear my friend Derek O'Brien, who I admire very much, speak. And he mentioned that Ravi Babu spoke 13 times about the Prime Minister. I can say that he managed at least half that feat by managing 6 times. 5, or maybe I stand corrected. But he's getting there. Thank you. I know, my appreciation of the Prime Minister is a matter of record, and it's not something which is very late. We all know that. I'm very glad. And it's not something which is late, and it's not something which I need to apologize about. I think what we see today, sir, is that a government which is there with energy, with direction, with a sense of newness, and with a sense of audacity. What it now requires to complement it is additional capacity to be able to deliver that. Thank you very much.
Very good.